Howdy y'all, this is Dwight and welcome back to part 11 on how I make a basic slip joint pocket knife. Okay, this video I'm going to be hand sanding, which I'm not going to sit here and have you watch me hand sand the whole thing, but I will show what I'm using. I have a piece of G10 that I'm using as my block, and I rounded off the corners on all the corners, that way it don't matter which corner I'm using. And this is what I'm using for the majority of my hand sanding. Whenever I'm happy with my hand finish, as far as having all my belt scratches out, I then move to this soft piece of scrap wood. It might be a maple or something like that. It's really a soft wood. But I use this to do my final pulls with. Having a softer block for that, for me, leaves finer scratches compared to using a hard block like G10. This will leave rougher looking scratches, for me anyways. And I use WD-40 for my fluid to hand sand with. Personally, I really like the WD-40. It makes a noticeable better finish, or helps leave a better finish compared to, say, if you're just using water. It'd be amazing the difference if you use WD-40. I have my 400 grit sandpaper cut into strips, and let me grab the larger piece here. I'm using 3M 400 wet dry paper. Obviously it's yellow backed. This is the part number, I guess you would say, of this paper. 3M also has a 400 grit wet dry paper that is gray backed. Now that gray backed noticeably feels finer on the grit side, and whenever you go to start hand sanding, there's a noticeable difference between this yellow back and their gray back as far as how well it cuts whenever you're hand sanding on metal. So once I tried this yellow backed, I never looked back on that gray back. I don't use it no more. Now the gray back on the final finish very well probably leaves a little bit better of a finish, but I get a good enough finish on this yellow back that I'm happy enough with it. Now I ain't got nothing fancy. I just have a stick of wood that I've clamped to my bench, and I have a piece of mild steel. I've got a hole drilled on either side of it for a pivot pin. I got a scrap piece of G10 underneath the tip. That way, that keeps it from moving around, and I don't have to have some kind of gawky clamp on it, because I don't have any kind of fancy fixture to go in with vise or anything like that. But this works decent enough. I'm going to go ahead and get this side hand sanded. When I get done with this side, I will be back and show you how I go from there. I have this side hand sanded now, so I will show you what I do from here. To protect the finish on this side of the blade, I take a piece of painter's tape and I put it on this side to protect it. Then I cut the excess off. Then I punch a hole through the back side with a pin there. So now we have hole for the pin. And one thing I did forget to show on this first side before I started is I take the worn in out part of some 400 grit, and I take this sharp corner off of the spine here. I do that before I start hand sanding, but that just helps take any sharp edges off. If you put your hand on it, you can feel that sharp edge dig into your hand or your finger if you're using that to brace if you're cutting something. And it's not much, but it's just enough to make that edge feel comfortable. Okay, so now my hand sanded side is protected, and I will proceed to sand this side now. Okay, got the blade hand sanded on both sides, and I went ahead and etched in my maker's mark. So the blade is good to go now for final assembly, but that will be in the next video. Just showing how I hand sand is all I'm going to show today. But for the next video, essentially all we got left to do is to go through and make sure our liners are flat on the flat surface and make sure they're nice and clean and shined up nice, and get the holes ready for peening, and then it'll be time for final assembly. So that's going to be coming up quick, and it should happen in the next video. So for everyone that is following along in this video series on how I make a basic slip joint pocket knife, I do appreciate y'all following along and for your support. And until the next video, y'all take care.